Thanks so much. Really happy to be out here. My name is Dominic Bay. I am from Santa Monica, originally from the Bay Area, River's old home. Super excited to be out here. If you see me on my phone, I figured out how to use the remote with the phone. See, Bitcoin makes us more tech savvy. Like, I could have never done this pre-Bitcoin, there's no chance. And to be determined, because it still may not work, so bear with me. This presentation was something I put together for adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador. So some of the things you guys are going to be very well versed in. With that said, I want to open it up to Q&A early. So please, by all means, don't let me talk your ear off here more than I already have already. Stop me at any point with a hand raise if you have a question, and we can tie in about that at any point. Okay, so. A little about myself, 15-year firefighter, spent 10 years as the president of our firefighters union, worked a lot with labor unions and did things like that there. First got into Bitcoin, well, you know, everyone has the first introduction story, so like I won't go over that because it's too painful. We all have that, you know, you all know. 2017 is when I first really started looking more into Bitcoin. Learning more about it, you know, investing. And when I stepped off of the union board, I was into Bitcoin and I was figuring out like where does Bitcoin and unions intersect? So this is that story about how the firefighters became the first union to self-custody Bitcoin. See how I threw that Columbus Meetup logo right there? What's up? All right. 3 years I heard that y'all been meeting, so congrats. Who here, by a show of hands, trades their time for money? I'll start with myself. Cool. So a handful of us, right? Okay, perfect. So we know this is preaching to the choir. I'll work through these real quick. Everyone's seen this before. Such a harsh title, Why Savers Are Losers. That's a little harsh. But the point is, saving in the US dollar has been a losing investment with loss due to inflation. And it's coincided with the money printing that has come up. And it shows, other than a short little peak in the late 20s, early 30s, it has been reliably a losing investment. And so the first way that we trade our money as workers is day to day, right? We trade our hours, 40 hours in a week, for a wage. You know, a lot of people have known this for a long time, but a lot of us came to learn this much more intimately with the recent inflation that was excessive. And this was just something I pulled from 2020 to 23. It says that $10,000 in 2020 is equivalent to purchasing power 11,892 today. This is a little bit outdated. It's from November, so just prior to that, the end of 2023. And the big takeaway as workers is if you just put your money under your bed, you lost $1,892. We don't associate it, like you all know, we don't associate it with losing that money, but you did in fact lose that money depending on what you're trying to buy. If you didn't get an 18.92% pay increase, you took a pay cut in whatever the difference was. Facts, it's just a hard fact. So if you didn't get a 19% pay raise, you took a pay cut. I know a lot of us didn't get that large of a pay raise, so we effectively took cuts. And again, this is conservative inflation. So the other way that we trade our money, or trade our time for money in the long run, is we work a 30-year career, right, for some form of retirement. And whether it's a 401k, a pension fund, we trade that career in hopes that when we're a little more beaten down and you know, it's just starting to ache a little bit, which I'm already there right now, that, you know, we're not gonna have to work really hard in order to make ends meet. I like this chart because it shows the impact. If you focus on the blue shaded region, it shows the impact of the financial crisis, and what it shows is that state and local pension plans have never recovered from that. You can see prior to the financial crisis, you had an average funded status of around, you know, low 90s to 95%. And after the financial crisis, you have a drop here. This shaded area is what's called the unfunded liabilities, and that's the difference between what a pension fund has in its portfolio and what it owes in outstanding liabilities to workers and people that they have to pay regularly. So pretty significant when you look at that and the state that pensions are in. So I talk to workers a lot and I say, what do you own outside of the traditional finance system? The same incredible system that brought us this great financial crisis, the same system that bailed out big banks much more than it did pension funds. And even with what bailouts they did give pension funds, a lot of that came with big reform, including working longer years, different kind of pension payouts, equations, et cetera. That's demonstrated by the average retirement age in the United States. 2002, you could see it was just over 58, 59. 2022 goes to 64. So the legacy system is completely fine with balancing the errors of their ledger with our time by saying, hey, you guys do us a favor. Know you had big plans to hang out with the kids and the grandkids at 58. We're gonna bump that to 64. By the way, hope you stay healthy. That could be the difference for some older people of, having like a big health problems and having to work longer, exacerbating those, but we'll balance the ledger that way. Same system that brought us super high inflation. Just when you think that gold and treasuries and things like that traditionally are outside of their reach, JP Morgan says, no, we manipulated that too. Here's $1 billion, sorry. The gold bugs, we got your gold under your bed, sorry. But here's an apology. So there's a hierarchy of money. You guys know, I'll breeze through this, but it all comes down to debt, with government debt traditionally being the most reliable and it trickling down there. And I said something at the Adopting Bitcoin conference. I said, if you can't get a hold of a sitting US senator right now, I know that I can't. We're on the outside of this system. No doubt about it. We are on the outside of the decisions that come to play to make this whole thing work and balance it out. And I believe that truly. So here we are outside of the system, and what do we have now? Bitcoin, right? So thank God that we have that. There's a little arrow to let you know we're outside, we have this. Because y'all didn't know without the arrow, so that was really important. The fundamentals are things you know well: self-custody, fixed supply and economics, decentralized. And it is for the reasons here of owning something outside of that system that the Santa Monica firefighters became the first union to purchase and hold Bitcoin in self-custody in the country. Something I'm really proud of. And one thing that's interesting, you guys have been meeting here for 3 years. So the most interesting part about this slide to me is the date. Why did it take so long? I mean, any union could have done this. Why did it take June 2023? And it's the mainstream media, right? The assault on the everyday consumer from the standpoint of Bitcoin is, we know it all too well. There was a full-blown blitz on negative media coverage of Bitcoin. You'd be crazy to spend it, the great scam. And you know how we know these so well as Bitcoiners? Because our fiat friends are always quick to show us these, right? Like, hey, did you see my Bitcoin convicted believer? Did you see the New York Times? They don't think what you're doing is right, and you're like, all right, another article, cool. So yeah, this is a lot to overcome. I think there's pension funds that are still overcoming this bias as we speak right now. They have an ETF available, and many still, the phone calls that I make, will not go near it and don't want anything to do with it. So how did we get the Santa Monica firefighters, a union of 120 members that can't even agree on what coffee they're going to drink in the firehouse? How do we get them to agree on something new and innovative like Bitcoin? And what I came back from, I came back from a trip from El Salvador, and it was really inspirational trying to spend Bitcoin and learning. I talked to everyone there. Anyone that wouldn't accept Bitcoin, I wanted to know why. And learning all the reasons were very similar to the reasons here in the US. So I developed a measure to literally acquire $1 per person of Bitcoin, right? Comical, funny way to start off. But it was for a reason. And the reason was because I have found that it is often easier when dealing with people's kind of preconceived prejudices to, instead of combat those and fight them, to say, okay, you believe what you're gonna believe, now let's put that to bed. I'm not gonna fight you on it. I'm not gonna say everything you know is wrong, you're dumb, you're not educated, because those things turn people off and they make people dig their heels in. Let's make the consequence so light that you can have that prejudice, but it won't affect what we're doing. So, hey, didn't Bitcoin crash from 69 to 15? We'll lose all our money. Sure, it did have a big, massive dip, but are you gonna really be upset about $1? No, okay, I'm not worried about that. People lose it. What if we lose the Bitcoin? Yeah, great, absolutely. I'm not gonna say and fight you on that. We could lose our self-custody Bitcoin easily, but if we're learning with $1, is that gonna be a huge tragedy? No, that's cool. Is it legal? You know, always worried about hey, we checked with our attorney, everything checks out, but what if they determine that it's not legal? Cool, we'll take the $1, we'll give it back, and I'm sure we'll be okay. We'll switch course. What is it backed by? The normal ones, FTX. So this allowed us, we put a measure together for $1 per member. That's us in the park. I'll explain why we were in the park. You're like, what are these guys doing on a computer in the park? This measure gave an overview of Bitcoin. How the process will work was very transparent to the organization. We did a lot of education. We put out educational materials beforehand. And this measure passed by 87%, which, like I said, if I do a coffee measure right now that we're gonna start a new brand of coffee, it would probably pass like 65 to 35 tops. So one of our highest passing measures, you know, that's on our website of the nonprofit. We make every step of the process, and we're in the process of making that available as an open source resource to anyone, because we don't want people to rely on us to bring Bitcoin to the organization. We want you to have the resources in, you know, consistency with the value of Bitcoin itself. Question?
When did you start the exploratory committee? Because you showed us the June 3rd, 2023 for holding. So I'm kind of curious when about that started.
Yeah, the committee was in conjunction with the measure. So right when this passed at 87%, we had a committee consisting of some Bitcoiners in our union, as well as members of the union board. And then we also, while we were at it, I wanted to really get a non-Bitcoiner that was kind of lukewarm. Like, I really sought out someone that, you know, wasn't anti-Bitcoin, but wasn't really sold on it. So that was the consistency of that committee. The reason we got that in the park was because here's a crazy story. In 2009, I worked my first marathon in Santa Monica. I was a brand new firefighter. Little did I know that there was someone running in that race named Hal Finney, who was halfway through the race, had to pull out of the race because he noticed, like, I'm getting really fatigued and I'm trained for this and I'm ready. So wasn't able to finish the race. You all know, what happened with him and his medical diagnosis afterwards. So we picked the finish line of that marathon because we thought it'd be cool to kind of represent this concept that, like, we're finishing the race that Hal didn't get to finish, and all of us are finishing this journey that was started before us. So that's why we picked that location. And since that dollar item started in June, we now have a whole coin on the balance sheet, and that was brought by the members. The rank and file were the ones who brought that forward, not the committee. Just brought options, but it wasn't the board saying we need to do this. It was the members saying we've learned about it, we've taken our step, we've seen what we needed to see, and now we want to take a more meaningful step. Since that time, we've had multiple unions follow suit. Vacaville firefighters became the second union. Humboldt Bay firefighters became the third union to add it onto the balance sheet, and a association in El Salvador that I worked with before adopting Bitcoin, we raised some sats for them and were able to donate to them that they hold in self-custody to start their journey. So, sometimes the other day I was just looking and I was like, we only got like 3 or 4 on, and sometimes I feel like it's like things are moving too quick, but there's still plenty of time to get folks on. Real quick, union adoption, why does it matter for Bitcoin? So there's 14.3 million union members in the United States, 207 million union members globally across the world, $28.5 billion in union assets. That does not include pension funds. That is just money managed by unions for operational funds. And like, any folks here union members, are part of a union shop? So, dues from the members, they go to events, other things that the union needs to purchase, and when a member gets, in a tough situation, they'll help support the member, all kinds of different things the union has funds for, but this is not including pensions. In the US, $5.64 trillion pension assets in the US, so that's another area that we focus on for education. 25 to 48 trillion in pension assets globally. With the World Economic Forum, I saw they had 2050 saying that there was going to be 400 trillion in pension deficits by 2050. I don't know if you guys have plans for 2050, but like things could get interesting. Hopefully they find Bitcoin before that. So we started the nonprofit. It's a 501c4, and we're dedicated to long-term education-based Bitcoin adoption. That is the key for us. We have a lot of great partners. So happy to be here with River, and we want unions to find Bitcoin and then walk that path themselves. We're there to help them and assist them, but we really, sometimes unions will be working with folks and they'll come back and go, well, what should I do here? What should I do there? And I go, well, you're not at that place where then you should be taking that step forward, because, right, you're relying on me from a point of trust when you should be making that decision from your own due diligence. So we have a ton of different resources. We're a nonprofit, and so I fund it primarily myself. We have some sponsors, and we're just trying to run a scalable operation that finds the Bitcoiner in any union or organization and gives you the resources you need to bring Bitcoin and have the best chance to bring it to your organization. And whatever we can do to help with that we are here to do that. I like this slide. Your immediate world depends on you to find Bitcoin. I do believe in that. I think we all believe in that. Sometimes it's a lot more difficult than it seems to put a foot forward and really put your neck on the line and say, hey, I really want to make a formal request to bring Bitcoin to our organization. And what's your organization? It could be, we were talking about the church before. It could be your workplace. It could be a fitness club, a book club, your union, your family, although we know stay away from the family. Like that's one you do not want to mess with, because you want to still be able to go to the events and hang out. But these organizations are relying on you, and I think all you can do is really put the best effort you can forward, do it in a strategic way, and at least down the road, you'll be able to, rest easy knowing that in 10, 20 years, like I really tried to bring Bitcoin to my organization. And whether it's successful or not, I think that's a very noble cause, because we found this thing, we love it, and some people it's going to be harder to do, but they're relying on us because we have the most knowledge and experience in that. This is a Substack I made, which walked through the entire process of how Santa Monica became the first union, and I really focused on the whys, like who do you approach first? Who should you talk on the union board? How having a real conversation with yourself saying like, am I a trusted person of my organization? Maybe there's someone better. Maybe there's someone that like everyone loves and they're the trusted person and they actually kind of understand Bitcoin and they'll believe in this effort. And so that might be the better person. It's not always one of us, but that's available and focuses on like every step of kind of what we did. Again, we're adding more open source materials to our nonprofit website. We have a letter template that you can email your union or pension. You just copy and paste it. You put the names in it. Because again, I think it would be interesting to see what the pensions do, but it's going to take participants finding Bitcoin, doing well with Bitcoin, organizations that formed a larger pension to say, hey, why, going back to that blue slide, why can we figure out the future and understand Bitcoin and what's needed for a portfolio, but why can't you guys figure that out? Like you guys have to start looking at Bitcoin. No one's saying to convert the whole pension to Bitcoin, but you have to use it as a tool in your portfolio. And getting them letters and sending stuff, I think, will be the key. This is, there's a longer story to this, which I'm gonna, many doors will open for you in your lifetime, walk through as many as you can. This was a door for me that was really, the more I stepped forward and the more I continue to do things, like opportunities open up. So pay attention to the signs and you guys will see whether it's through Bitcoin or other things, like there'll be doors that are open, blast through those, work hard, and then you'll see a lot of different things that open up, because this was something for me where it wasn't like things going right. It's just like the harder I worked in this like intersection, the more things kind of blossomed. And so I like that quote there. Bitcoin's greatest property, the people. And so consistent with the walking through the doors, a very, very quick story that I'm gonna really shorten, but if y'all have heard me on podcasts, like I've told this story a couple times. The morning FTX crashed, I was working Fire Station 7 down at the beach. And of course, like y'all on the morning of FTX, I came into work, and I'm like, no one bother me. Like I'm in the zone and it's opportunity time for Bitcoin. Like people are scared, but like, let's stay calm and Bitcoin on, And we get a call and it ended up being a gentleman on the beach who had kind of a hurt neck. And I'm like, of course this happens the day I'm doing like the paramedic stuff, what are my chances? So I'm like, all right, what happened? He was diving in the water with some friends visiting, and he ended up hurting his neck. We sent him up to the hospital and said, look, we're just gonna play it safe and send you to the trauma center, and we're gonna put you on a backboard and really be like cautious here. He ended up, being someone that was an analyst, worked in Bitcoin, found that out on the road up. As we're driving to the hospital, I like making small talk and going like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm a Bitcoin analyst. And I'm like, stop the ambulance. 17, man, like, well, are we 17K? Like, is this buy zone? And he's like, he's like, wait, what? And I'm like, hey, don't move your neck, dude. Like, he's like, well, no, let's talk. And I'm like, no, I'm kidding, dude. We didn't stop the ambulance. But this opened a path for me that I kept following. And when it happened, it just, it's easy sometimes to dismiss things as like, oh, that's just a coincidence. But I think life gives you signs. So these are my socials. Any support, I don't give them to you to like follow me and like stuff. I give it to you because we need your help here for sure. You guys are a strong meetup, and we need to get the word out that we are a resource to unions, to pension funds, to anyone that needs us. That is how you can find us. I'm always accessible via direct message. And until, it gets busy to the point where I can't talk to everyone at the same time, I will take any phone call and talk to any person that's trying to bring Bitcoin to their organization, their union, walk them through as best I can, and make sure I give them all the resources so that they walk in confidently and have a game plan. And that is my time. So thank you guys so much. If there's questions, I can answer some quick questions. Yeah.
Were there any legal issues or regulations that you had to worry about investing pension union funds into Bitcoin?
Yeah, so The legal side of things, the unions, most unions in the U.S. are categorized as 501c5 corporations, nonprofit corporations. Again, River has been really experienced in dealing with these organizations, and they can hold any asset they want. It's perfectly legal under just like a corporation would. For pensions, y'all know the Bitcoin spot ETF is here, and a lot of pensions may have that as an option already. We're working with some municipalities and funds and seeing how can a pension self-custody, or how can a city self-custody to pay some of the funds they owe to the pensions. But pensions, it gets a lot more complex because they not only have rules and regulations, they have governing documents which maybe prohibit, certain, they could say, we won't invest in an asset smaller than this size. And that's why you hear sometimes in the conversation like, oh, we're early to Bitcoin, because some pensions may not touch an asset until it reaches excess, however many $1 trillion and moving volume of certain substantial size. So it gets more complex with pensions. And to answer the legality, it varies on the pension and where it is and what the state's laws are, and things like that.
Any other questions? Yeah.
You said a line which really hit home. I just would like for you to repeat it. You were saying something about like banks are very happy to waste your money instead of like their ledger scopes. Can you say that again? What was that?
Oh, that the legacy finance is happy to balance the ledger on the backs of workers using your time, your funds, right?
So beautiful.
And
Very well said.
thank you. Well, I lived through one reform in California on CalPERS. They moved the age back, and it caused a lot of, we have 2 tiers now. So I work beside a firefighter who retires at a later date that I do. They pay a different amount into the pension, and they receive a different amount. We're doing the same job. But CalPERS, who's had some trouble, they're going to balance the ledger by doing that. And it's so easy for pensions, instead of to cause heartache for some shareholder of a company or, the government, who they're going to bail out, to go, well, let's just have the workers work from 58 to 60. It's 2 years. They don't care. They love coming to work anyways. And we'll balance it out like that. And, oh yeah, we'll drop the money they're going to get from their pension a little bit, and let's make them pay a little more, because they're not going to, what are they going to do? Are they going to get so upset that they quit and cause a whole uprising? That's much easier sometimes to say, you know what? Goldman Sachs was bad actors, and we're going to let everyone there suffer and lose their massive, wealth that they've accumulated there. Oh, and by the way, those people are going to be pretty active in coming after me if I'm the cause of that. So it's always the easier route is on the back of the worker.
You gotta put that in one of the slides now.
I will. I'll add it in there. Yeah.
What was the most absurd objection you received, and how did you handle it? And then what was the interaction that gave you the most hope for pensions in the U.S. adopting it?
In the work, trying to get the unions on board?
Yeah. So absurd and best.
Is this still on the film? No, I'm just joking. We had one member say, this isn't like an objection, but he said after we did the measure, I'd feel more comfortable if we had invested in lottery tickets. So I'm waiting a little while. That might become like a T-shirt. If they're watching, they know who they are. I love you still. So I don't know if that was an objection. The most optimistic thing is nothing specifically, but I'll tell you what has been like unbelievably optimistic. If you were to walk into one of our fire stations, the amount of curiosity that was sparked by the organization signaling, even at $1, like, this is okay, we're going to do this, and it's important enough for us to have a measure. I cannot explain. I'm walking into conversations that, they're walking in like, hey, so the halving thing, like here, okay, I was reading about this, and so the halving, I know it's the issuance, it's not like the supply gets cut in half, and I think miners are gonna have, a challenge in some of them, and you're like, okay, you guys are jiving, like, and they're talking about self-custody, and they're saying, well, I looked into this hardware wallet, and it's interesting with this configuration. So they're talking about the right things, and that's been the most inspiring because I believe that this formula, oh. You all right? You good? I believe that the organization, the organization signaling and the effect, I believe it works. And I actually got calls from the other unions saying, hey, dude, we got a lot of like interest in the right stuff. And I think that's important because even if I go back to when we did $1 per member, if we had done something larger, maybe the conversation would be different. Maybe it'd be more along the lines of the asset and focused on the money side of it and like, well, I think we should time the cycles because, you know, we could really benefit from, and so I don't think you can bypass the education. It can't be exceeded by the emotional investment that comes along with a really big purchase. And so that's been really inspiring to see all the people coming in and having the conversations, and it's just like, yeah, it's amazing.
Think you got one? Yeah.
Well, my question has more to do with the way y'all have set up y'all's system for it, with the option of the Fed coin that they're trying to come out with. Are they going to force y'all to convert, or?
You know, you never know what the government is going to do, but you know, we have a good setup right now, and you know, we'll cross that bridge if it were to come. You know, we'll deal with that when it comes. But I think we're going to be in good company in resisting things like that. And of course, we're going to operate within the confines of the law. But like Joe Carlasari, you guys listen to him all the time, and I had a good conversation with him on a space where he's like, come after self-custody and constitutional rights, and myself and many lawyers will be ready to work pro bono to like fight these things. So we're confident that we have enough adoption across a broad range of industries that we would be able to take, you know, proactive steps to prevent something like a tax on self-custody. But it's always something, and we'll have to cross that bridge, you know, when it comes.
So in working with, you know, these unions and the people that are, you know, the various firefighters, et cetera, so after you onboard, you know, a union, you say you're gonna have these conversations, and people are talking about the housing and all sorts of, you know, just things that are like interesting, right? Do you have like a resource library for individuals that are just like hungry for more information, right? So like, hey, I'm a part of this union, I'm in it to win it, and I'm so glad, you know, we did $1 person, et cetera. But from a personal perspective, I want to go after this in my own family, right? So do you have like a package of resources that could like take them down that road?
Yeah, I mean, we have some links on the website that are, you know, with all the resources that you know and love, and books and things like that. We made a list before. I want to say it was in between the dollar measure and when we went whole coin, a list of books, podcasts, resources. And so we're always supportive of that. The committee's always available. And through word of mouth, you know, in our union, like they always know how to get some of those. And so that's what we use primarily. And we're happy to refer people everywhere to, you know, if it's a good resource, like check it out, you know, and so we're very encouraging of that. Cool. Well, I'm always open for any questions. Again, thank you guys so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to Lindsay giving us some convo on River. So thank you so much, and I look forward to keeping in touch with everyone for sure. So thank you guys.